morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you happen to be listening. I am excited to be here with Janet Payne, who is the owner of TrustPoint Insurance and Real Estate. So she is an insurance agent and a real estate agent. And Janet and I met back in late September in Florida, and we've connected through social media over the last few months. Hard to believe, like it's almost been a year now. Well, I mean, a little over half a year. Like it's crazy how time, like I have no track of time at this point with the current state of affairs, but I'm excited to be talking with you today and learning more about you and sharing your story with other people. So thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing today, Janet?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are things in Kansas at this point? Are you starting to feel like things are going back to normal, or where are you guys at?
We're in a very rural area, so I feel like that we are. I have traveled to the more populated areas, and it's different, obviously, but I feel like it is getting there, maybe more so than some other states. So I would say we're probably right in the middle. Everything's not completely still shut up, but we're also not completely still open yet. So
yeah, so kind of
we get there soon.
Yeah. Halfway in, halfway out, which is pretty much the same way that we are in Iowa. I got a message this morning that a few dining rooms at restaurants were open. I don't think everybody's open, but I feel like we're going to be able to go out and have somebody else cook for us and clean up afterwards pretty soon, which is an exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I actually did that this week. Tuesday was my first time I got to eat out, and they had like every other table blocked off so that they could keep the distancing, and it was actually pretty enjoyable. It was very odd though, not having a lot, because even though they had tables blocked off, it still wasn't a lot of people there.
Yeah.
But I think it'll get there. It was nice to have someone else wait on you.
Yeah, no kidding. But I think like
I'll do the dishes when you're done.
Yes. This adjustment back, I think, is going to be interesting just to see. Like, I kind of thought like all the restaurants would just be busy and you wouldn't be able to get a table anywhere. But I think, some people are just going to continue to be pretty cautious about how they proceed with any sort of social activities. But then
I was kind of taken back because I went to Lawrence, Kansas, which where KU University is. Mm-hmm. So we had went there, and it was to a sushi place, and of course it was a little earlier in the day, probably like 5:30ish, and I think the restaurants just started maybe on that Monday or Tuesday allowing dine in at all. And we walked in, and the first thing the hostess said when we walked in is, "Oh wow, you're brave." And so I thought to myself, I started second thinking, should we really be doing this? I think it's okay. I mean, making second thoughts on whether we should be eating out. But I think it's even unusual for the employees to see who all's going to come visit and eat.
Yeah, well, I think it's much needed for the economy to try and spur some sort of growth, because obviously like something like this is, I think it'll be interesting to see like how devastating it actually ends up being on the economy.
Yeah. I left an extra big tip because I felt bad for all those months they weren't able to get tips, because waiters and waitresses rely on that, and I'm like, oh, I can't imagine how long they've been without that. So
yeah, certainly has been tough. So did your team all go work remote? Was that kind of what you guys needed to do, or was it an option, or how?
So we did. So even though our industry obviously was essential in Kansas, we made the decision because my business partner has always pushed like technology, and we have a VoIP system for our phones. Even though we have multiple locations, we have it pretty much a receptionist kind of operator that it brings into, that she can transfer phones to who it's for. So we didn't have that much of a difficulty transitioning into everybody working from home. Of course, we have the 3 monitors for all of our CSRs. So that was a little bit of an obstacle, working from home and just having the one screen and the processing. But it wasn't too bad. We did that while the stay-at-home order, was in place. And then when they started opening up the state, we came back to the office, and a lot of it is because a lot of our CSRs wanted to come back in. Yeah. One, they liked the camaraderie, having the personal relationships, and they wanted 3 screens back for the ease of, working versus a makeshift office in their home and less distractions. But we still have our office lobby to where on the sign, it's unlocked, but the sign on the front says we are requesting by appointment, just because our actual lobby isn't extremely large, and where we are located, we still have a lot of walk-ins.
Okay.
We have those people that want to come in every month and pay their bill, even though they can do it online, they can stick it in the mail. And so just to control, we don't have a way of like, the social distancing aspect, so our lobby doesn't get overcrowded. We have just tried to ask that it's by appointment only. So we are back, but not like we were.
Yeah. And certainly we've all had to adjust in different ways. And it's been an interesting process, but I think if nothing else, we've all learned a lot about how quickly we can make decisions when we have to.
Yes, absolutely. And we made sure when everyone came back, they all had the hand sanitizer. And then we also purchased TrustPoint mask for everyone. So they all have masks. Now, we didn't make it a requirement that they had to wear the mask. So even though our lobby is small, our office is big enough, we're not cubicles or anything. Every person has their own office.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to wear their mask all day long when they're working. But when they have a customer that does come in, they're supposed to ask them if they want them to mask up, all of that for their comfort level. And the majority of the people actually are saying they don't care, they don't need them, they don't need them to put a mask on or whatever. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, definitely varying levels of response and cautiousness from person to person. Which I think it'll be that way for a long time. Yes. I think.
Yes,
yeah, for sure.
It might be a new accessory.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. We're all gonna have designer masks pretty soon. Yeah, my Louis Vuitton.
Yes,
it'll be the only Louis Vuitton I can afford.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
oh my God,
I can see that in our future.
Yes, yeah. So, how has the family been during all of this?
Okay, so it's been good and an adjustment. So for me, I went from having a full house a few years ago because to my daughter and son both in college, and then my husband works like shift work. So I kind of was in that teetering that empty nest syndrome where I was, home at nights and sometimes by myself all night, to where now everybody's back in the household. Plus I'm trying to work from home. Then my husband was trying to work from home, and both my kids were trying to do college from home. So that was probably the biggest adjustment, is trying to having all this space to myself, to where now we're trying to be respectful of everybody's workplace and their space. And so that was probably the most interesting for a little while. But now everyone's college is over as far as the studies part for my son. And my daughter, she graduated from Creighton. That was kind of sad watching it virtually, just flashing across the screen. But she got her doctorate degree in occupational therapy. And then so she's finished that and now looking for jobs. And my husband's now back to work regular. So it's kind of getting back to a little bit of normalcy. But I would say that the food aspect, my grocery bill, is way high, having everybody home, that I have to worry about that because I hadn't for a while. So that's probably been one of the biggest changes, is making sure I have food and having someone that's always saying, hey, what are we having to eat? So I haven't had that for a while.
No more popcorn for dinner when everybody's home.
I know, right? And then I'm like, you guys are old enough to go you have your credit cards. You can go to the store and buy. You should have dinner ready for me when I get home.
Yeah,
exactly. This picture.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I will say my 13-year-old did cook a few times and didn't even ask, but I think it was because he didn't want to ask what I wanted to eat. So he would just go and make something. So he's like, there's no questions. It was almost like my approach, either you like what's on the table or you don't. I did my best. And he was like, peace out. And
I would be good with that.
Yeah. So we had some spaghetti dinners. He's getting pretty good with those noodles. I'm confident that he will be okay. He will at least know how to make macaroni and spaghetti. Whenever he
survive on that. Yeah.
And ramen.
Yes, absolutely. That's what my kids did.
Yeah. So yeah, he'll be fine. The other two, I'm not sure. I think They've definitely been well taken care of over the last couple of months.
Spoiled.
Yes, yes. So shifting gears a little bit, I got to know you a little bit during the couple of days that we had together in Florida, but would love to know more about your history, how you got into insurance. Like, there's so many different paths that bring us here. Everybody
Absolutely.
has like a unique story, and I'd
They
love
do.
to hear yours.
So for me, I began my insurance career probably about 20 years ago, and kind of like most people, probably just fell into it. My desire to even apply for the agency that was here at the time was real estate. I wanted to be a realtor. That was what was appealing. Insurance was kind of like a side thing. And at that time, the agency I went to work for, they required you to get duly licensed in both. And so I only got my insurance license because I had to, not because I wanted to. And it was difficult because I didn't have interest in it. My passion was real estate at the time. And it didn't take me long, probably about a couple years of juggling both and doing both. I realized the opportunities that were in insurance, especially here where we live. On real estate, I could have a really good year, but then every year when you start over a new year, you just hope to do as good as last year or have more sales. There's no such thing as retention.
Yeah.
People don't go and buy a house every year. You could build those relationships with those clients, but they're not repeat customers traditionally on a regular basis anyway. And so on insurance, that was what was interesting to me. Even though I was an hourly employee, I still realized that long term, for where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, that insurance offered greater opportunities for growth, building a book, the retention, the renewal base, and the consistent building year after year. So I actually leaned more towards the insurance as far as my duties, because even though I did both early on, it took me a while to realize that I couldn't be all, do all, and I needed to pick a specialty.
Yeah.
And so even though I'm still continued to be licensed in real estate, and our office obviously still does real estate, now we're the opposite. We have the opposite mindset of my original employer. We do not really encourage or allow people to be duly licensed because I feel there is a conflict there. It's putting more on people's plate than what they truly can handle, especially with all the regulations, mandates, changes, things you have to stay up on top of. I feel that, pick a path, pick a passion, and try to excel at it. And so probably what's kept me in this industry is the challenges of the career. It's not boring. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the inconsistency can be frustrating, but it's also, I feel, has given me the challenge that I've needed all these years to feel accomplished, in that there's always something new. I'm never feel like I'm settled, and I think, sometimes people get in positions where they feel like there's no room for growth, and I already know everything there is to know, and it becomes stagnant, and this industry is not one of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my story as far as the insurance goes, on why I'm here and how I'm here. So
yeah. And it's so funny to see how you saw the benefits of insurance pretty early on, but yeah, there is so much to learn. It really doesn't stay the same. I mean, certain things are like always going to be the same.
yes.
Co-insurance and deductibles, I guess.
Right.
Everything else, it just seems like there's a steep learning curve when you're coming in, and you have to be willing to stay on top of all of the new information that comes out.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things, like early on, that I struggled with, because I was always like pretty much a quick learner, and any job or anything I've ever done, the training process hasn't been that long where I felt like I can do this, I can be self-sufficient. But it took a long time for me to adjust to this industry, and the fact of realizing that number one, you're not going to have all your work done when you leave at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as that. There's always going to be a to-do list out there. The other thing is just that recognition that I don't have to know everything, I'm not going to ever master it.
Right.
I think that was a thing, early on, I felt like I wasn't getting it. I'm going to be horrible at this because I don't know it all. I always felt like I had to know it all. And that was probably the biggest thing to overcome, is that it's okay. You're not ever going to know everything. You have all the resources. And if you think you have it figured out, tomorrow they're going to change it on you.
Don't get
be
too
open-minded.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the bigger struggles early on, for me personally anyway, is just accepting the fact that it's a rewarding career, but it also is something that is more slow paced. It's not something that you can just learn overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's what, it can be frustrating, but hopefully it's what keeps people interested as well. Yes. Once you're in,
it's exciting.
Then you're just hooked.
Yeah, it is.
You're like,
There's
tell me.
Days, there are bad days, but overall, I think that the rewarding days and the exciting days, they overshadow to me the bad ones. So
yeah, absolutely. So when you look back on, just life in general and your career in the industry, what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
So, oh gosh, I would say one of the lessons that I feel like I've learned is, not to take things for granted. And when the people say that, and this is kind of relevant, maybe where I am personally in my life and where I am professionally in my life. If I look back at some things that I've kind of had to learn the hard way is, people say it all the time, but you just kind of take it for granted. Like when they say time flies, savor the moment, enjoy the moment that you're in. I'd have to say that that's one of the things I really see validity in right now is, while I feel like that my drive and determination got me to where I am, I do look back and think it was all kind of like a blur. I was always looking for the next, trying to advance my career. I'd always trying to be better, do better, that I sometimes forgot to live in that actual moment.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the things, early on, I want to say probably one of the lessons I learned and how I learned it the hard way, and it's kind of set in the back of my mind, is I attended a conference in Nebraska early on in my career, the same week that my daughter started kindergarten.
Mm.
So it scarred me, obviously, for life, forever. It stuck with me as feeling guilty. Obviously, she's fine. My mom took lots of pictures, etc. But looking back, I am mad at myself because I let that happen when I would have had a choice. Because I can't believe that I, at that moment, thought going to that conference in Nebraska I don't even know what it was about. I can't even tell you. I just know it was a conference in Nebraska. But I missed my daughter's first day at kindergarten. And so, but because of that experience, it had, as an owner, it has made us, we emphasize to all employees that family is always first. And so I try to stress that and push that on others who, may be that same eager entrepreneur like I was. And so we always make sure that no matter what the situation is, that family always comes first. So I would say that's probably one of my biggest lessons, is just time flies, and to make sure that you're enjoying those moments when you're in them.
Yeah. And I love that. And I'm glad that you said that, because I think I have struggled with that as well. Like, if I don't take this opportunity, I miss the opportunity. Mm-hmm. But that's not
necessarily true. Those opportunities will be there tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Or something different, maybe something better.
Yeah. Maybe,
and so, like slowing that train down a little bit. Yeah. I still need to do much better at that. But I know that my kids are actually pretty good about just calling me out sometimes, mostly my daughter, because she's a little bit sassy like her mom. But she just tells me like it is. She'll be like, well, you said that we were going to do such and such at 8:30 so that I could go to bed, and you're on your computer. And she will just laser right into me, and I will be like, okay, so I'm going to walk away from this right now. And if I don't, she'll be like, that was 5 minutes ago, Mom. Like, she is always watching. So
she's got that accountability.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's like the little angel on my shoulder reminding me.
She's going to be a good manager someday.
Yeah. She thinks she is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess when you're faced with those decisions, when you have two things that seem like equally important at the time, try to fast forward and look, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what will be, which will I think then is important.
Yeah.
And like I said, if I would have forward thought that, I probably would have made a different decision. But in that moment, it was like, I'll have pictures, we have the phone, I'll stay in communication. She's young enough. Like I said, it didn't scar her, affect her, but it is something for me that I've always been in the back of my mind, and I'm mad as a mother. I missed out on that life event.
Yeah.
There's no do-overs for that. You can't get that back.
Yeah. So. But I love that advice. Fast forward and look back from there. Because we always wait for hindsight. But what if we could just kind of project our own hindsight? Yeah. I like that idea. I'm going to have to try and do this.
Yeah. It's
probably
hard.
More often than I think I need to.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Because you never know what those consequences are going to be. Like if I didn't go, what would I have missed out on at the conference or whatever? But again, I think a lot of that too is trying to separate that personal and professional, because when they both combat each other. But I can tell you, just from where I am right now, if you have a situation like that, you can never go wrong by choosing yourself, your family, and personal first.
Yeah. I love it. So most of us are blessed to have very special people in our lives that take care of us and take us under their wing. Who has had the biggest impact on your life?
I would say, oh gosh, I have a lot of people, luckily, that have been very influential in my life. And so obviously, first and foremost, I think who set the ground for me is my parents. They've been great role models, not only in the family and faith, but also professionally, because they've always been, my dad's farmer, and then he owned a grain elevator. And so has always been an entrepreneur. And so I think that they were great role models early on and had impact in my life. And then, there's been a lot of people that have supported me along the way. I think as far as how I've got to where I have been professionally, I had great mentors early on, and that I look up to, that I learned a lot from. And so now I hope I can be that to others. And so I try to, be more conscious of, it's not about like me and my goals and what I do. I want to be that support and help people get now my reward is being able to pass it on to others and to help others, because I had so many, the first agency I came to work for, that she was very influential. And then even the last employer that we worked for, I felt like the owner of that agency I learned a lot from him. And then I would say someone who's had a big impact in my life, both personally and professionally, is my business partner, Angela. So I know you probably met her in Florida as well, but so before, we've been friends for as long as I can remember, but it's a unique situation because most people try to separate personal and professional, because otherwise sometimes it doesn't mix. We're probably one of the rarities because it has worked all these years. We actually were roommates even right out of high school and college age. So it goes way back. But when before we bought the agency and became business partners, she was actually my manager. So she pushed me outside of my comfort zone as a salesperson and a producer. I remember specifically because, I've over the last 10 years of owning the agency, I've kind of, I want to say, blossomed a little bit as far as not being as shy and intimidated. But, cold calling or just going up and talking to strangers was really a weakness kind of mine. And so she would go with me and so about kick me out of the car so that I could go in and force me out of my comfort zone. She's probably been the person most in my life that has forced me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But it's been rewarding. I have seen growth from that. I'm one of those people that always kind of I get comfortable. And so I don't like change. And it's kind of been a running joke in the office for years because her birthday's in November, and it just seems like coincidentally every November she wants to change something, and it's usually not a small thing. So we call it Change-vember. But anyhow, because she's like that, I've learned to adapt to that, and I think it's good. I think it's good to have people that force you into those places where you're not comfortable for growth. I think that to adapt to change, because this world is ever so evolving, and that you're always going to be faced with change in some sort of fashion, and it's to look at it positively versus negatively. And so I would say that those people, and then obviously my family, like my husband and kids, have always been, are impactful and supportive of whatever, all the ups and downs, highs and lows, and, being that cheerleader along the side. But I would say I've had a large group of supporters and people that have been very impactful for me personally, and also to get where I am in this career.
Yeah. And I look back and I just think there's so many people that like just come into your life and you couldn't have expected, you couldn't have predicted the role that they were going to have in your life. And they end up having this major impact on either a direction you take personally or professionally. I have, my mentor actually just retired. Oh my gosh, what was it? Maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. But I mean, she was a mom and and she was, I don't know what she had, 40 plus years in the industry. And so she taught me so much, and I would not be where I am or who I am if it hadn't been for her. So yeah, I just love it. I just think it's beautiful to see how maybe it wasn't even intentional on her part. And whether or not the people in your life intended to do that, it's so powerful in terms of the way it shapes who you become. And so,
and then you get to a point where you think, oh, I just hope I can be that for some person, out there. And so it's kind of an awareness when you look back and realize who that person was. At the time you may not realize it because it just may seem more natural that you're studying under them or learning under them. When you look back, you're like, wow, that was a huge mentor for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And a lot of people may think that, like, because we've been friends most of our life and then business partners, that we have a lot in common. And actually we're kind of polar opposites, and we're different in so many aspects, but I think that's what's made it work.
Yeah.
Is because we don't think the same. Yeah. So we're able to collaborate well and show different points of views and bring a lot to the table by being so different. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's so much value to that in terms of like collaborating with people that don't think like you.
Absolutely.
It can seem like it's going to create friction, but then if you only talk to people that think exactly like you don't actually go anywhere, and it
opens your eyes up to so much stuff you hadn't even thought about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because I do think the people that I'm most compatible with are not actually people that are a lot like me. Isn't it? Which seems so counterintuitive. As I say it out loud, I'm like, this sounds crazy, but this is what my experience has been now in the last couple of years as I've really started to expand in my career. It's been absolutely crazy to discover that.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Sometimes I guess if you're too much alike, you don't learn anything, and then you kind of stay stagnant. But I think by being opposites, it challenges you and always has you forward thinking and looking at all the obstacles, all the positives, all the negatives. And so anyway.
Yeah. When I work with these people, I always try and think like, how can I get one step ahead of their thought process? It's never happened. I'm still trying, but I'm really trying to like even think like 2 steps outside of the box, and I'm still not quite getting there. But I'm one of these days I'm going to be like, I got it. I got it.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that think that of you too. They're probably, you don't think about it because but I'm sure there's a lot of people that think that about you too. Is like, how can I be like that? So,
well, Let me tell you, I have no secrets. I have no idea. I wish it was funny because somebody asked me and they're like, so what was your path? And I was like, I didn't have one. I just started moving and talking. And that's pretty much, that's what happened.
Well, you do a good job of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So you and your business partner have this amazing relationship. You own an agency, you're leaders in your organization and in your community. How do we help encourage more women to take that leap in their careers?
I think that what I feel that a lot of women would be interested in this career is because we're perfect examples of I think a lot of women maybe are concerned about getting into any career path because of the risk of, they feel like they have to choose family or profession, and don't realize you can have a professional life and still be a mom, still be a wife. And so I think a lot of people may think that you have to choose a career or a family. And so I think this industry is a perfect example of the fact that you can truly have both and be successful at both. But this industry is interesting as far as like when we talked early on about how I got into this career and what drew me to it. It was by happen chance. It wasn't something that I ever on my radar said I want to do. And so I've thought a lot about this, plus with having kids that are college age and, seeing them grow and think like, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I want to be? What profession? What do I want my major to be? And so I've thought a lot about why isn't our industry ever on anybody's radar? People I talk to from all over fell into this for one reason or another because they maybe needed a job and that was what was available.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like they chose this career path. I think that a lot of the corporations and companies do a decent job of having career fairs at the college level. And, I think that potentially a lot of business majors look at insurance as an opportunity because of the finance side, et cetera. I know a lot of people from our community that go to K-State for ag related fields. And my thing is that, great if you want to be a vet or go into agronomy or milling science or whatever. But if you are from a rural area and you have an ag background and you want to do something in the ag industry, insurance also has an ag field and a department, and there's so much of a need I feel for just in general, whether you want to do like crop insurance or if you want to do any type of ag, whether it be commercial or farm and ranch insurance. On that aspect, you can be you could be an adjuster. I mean, there's lots of different things that you could do, but I think that when you get to the college age, people have kind of already had their mindset of like what path they maybe want to go.
Yeah.
And here locally at our high school, they do a career fair, and I don't know if they do that around the country or not, but our agency actually has been participating in the local high school career fair. And actually one of my current producers, my current employees, that's how we got introduced to her and met her, and she found out about what we have to offer and what we do. Wow. And so that helped. And I think, that she's a perfect example. This is a great fit for her. But I think sometimes it even starts early on. My sister is a high school teacher, and her sophomore class is where the students have to pick a career that they're interested in and do a career project. And they have to find a professional in that career to interview. They have all these interview questions about the position as far as like, can be like, what do you actually do? What does this profession consist of? What is the pay scale? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And I think that piques a lot of kids' interest. And so I actually have volunteered, because not every sophomore kid out there knows somebody in a professional field that they can just interview. And I think sometimes that's why maybe so many kids decide they want to be teachers, is because that's who they spend all their life with. That's the profession they know, other than what maybe their parents do. So I have volunteered to tell her that if she ever has any kids that are undecided and then they don't know, I will be one of those professional and in their insurance or real estate that people can that the students can interview me and I share our industry. So I have been the career project for a few kids over the years on insurance or real estate, whichever one that they pick that they think, and I'll help them, learn about our industry so they can do that as their assignment. But I think that those are some of the things that maybe we can do. I think we just have to be out there and educate our youth more. I don't think that a lot of people know. I mean, even as parents, we ask our kids early on, what do you think you want to do when you grow up?
Yeah.
And I know, I'm not doing what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to be a cosmetologist. I wanted to do hair and makeup, but that was just kind of like, what I knew.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I don't know how we necessarily go about it, but I do think that getting information to them at a younger age, feeding their mind with that and knowing the opportunity is there before they just by happen chance fall upon it as a secondary option or third option for some people. So
yeah, and I always say I'm trying to subliminally raise insurance nerds in my house. Yeah. So I don't know that they're ever picking up on it. I'd like to think that they just don't know. Subconsciously they've started to realize that they love insurance.
I think sometimes people, and just from talking to my own kids, when I'll say something about, have you thought about a career in the insurance industry? And of course, my son, who it would be great in sales, his response to me is, I don't want to sit in an office all day. I want to be outside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that what people think we do, is just sit in an office all day? Because yes, there are positions within our industry that it is, you're at a desk and you're processing, and that may be what some people want to do. But if you are a person that doesn't want that, well, there's lots of opportunities, whether it be in sales or whether you're in loss control or whether you're doing adjusting. I mean, there's lots of different things. Actually, one of the things that I think a lot of businesses can do if they're not doing it already is talk to your local high schools, not only about career fairs, or if there's any classes that do those career projects that maybe you can say, hey, my business would be willing to do that. But also see if they do any type of work study. So here they don't always do it, and they're kind of bringing it back. But 20 years ago when I started in this industry, that owner participated in a work study where high school students would come in and work half days. And that was kind of part of their curriculum.
Yeah.
And one of the gals actually that worked here, that was back before we had everything online. We actually had the paper decks that we filed in the file cabinet.
Yeah.
And one of her jobs was to file deck pages. And she was to tell us if, like an auto policy, if it went up more than like 10%. I mean, so now it's all computer automated.
Yep.
She physically would look at last year's deck page versus this year's deck page, and she would tell us if it went up more than 10%, and then she would give it for us to work it, quote it, etc. And she, very brilliant young gal, and she was so inquisitive. She wanted to know why. So I was talking to her about how all the autos had like your ISO, your symbols. And that just because the Lexus was more value than a Ford Mustang, the Ford Mustang GTs had a higher symbol and were more expensive than the Lexus. And she was very intrigued by that. So I told her that there's actuaries out there that do all these studies of like what's involved in more accidents or what's more thefts, which is a higher risk, to come up with that rating criteria. And she actually went to college, became an actuariist, and she is working for, I want to say, in Kansas City, one of the national companies as an actuariist now. And
wow.
The interest in becoming an actuariist all started from her doing her work study at this office.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm not good at math, so that's not, but I am slightly fascinated by statistics. Later in life, 20 years after I actually need to take a test on it, it's a lot more interesting now than it was back then. But yeah, it's crazy how you can just plant those little seeds, and you don't necessarily realize. You probably didn't realize that she was going to go to school.
No, I didn't. I knew it bothered her because she was, math was an interest for her, but how they came up with, those the rating criteria and those symbols for each car and all the data that went into it really was intriguing to her. So she went on, and that's what her career is. I mean, she's now an actuariist for, I want to say like AIG or something like that. It's a big national company where there's offices, but because she was in Chicago for a while, was where she started her first career. Her first job out of college was in Chicago, but now she's back in KC.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, good for her. We need those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just never know. Like, our industry is so broad.
Yes.
You don't have to just be sitting here. I mean, obviously she's in office and crunching numbers all day and dealing with the rating matrix of it. But there's so many different opportunities, whether it be underwriting or whether it be claims, whatever it is, there's so much opportunity in this industry.
Yeah. So many different lanes.
Yes.
So many different, different fields you can play in within the insurance scope.
Yep.
So yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I didn't know I was going to be in marketing a year ago.
Well, see, and that's another thing is I think, they're targeting people that go into marketing of any sort. I mean, this is a great industry if marketing is something that is in your appetite, because we definitely, so like for me personally, it's not my thing. Technology is not my thing, but it takes all of those intricate pieces to make it all work. I happen to be an insurance nerd a little bit and love the actual product and read policy forms and all of that.
Yep.
But I can't just do that. I have to be technically inclined. We also have to do marketing. We have to be in sales. So anyhow, it takes all of those, all that information.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say, don't be afraid to take chances and don't dwell on those things that you can't control. In time, everything truly does work itself out. I look back at, at some of the times that I just got so upset and obsessed about some things that just ended up working out. And not that it wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't as big a deal as I made of them. And probably I would tell my younger self too, that it's okay to say no. I took on a lot, trying to be all for all. And sometimes that was, hindering in my path a little bit. So I think that knowing what your limitations are, and people aren't going to think less of you if you tell them, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now, or whatever it may be. So I think also probably if I could tell my younger self that it was really okay to step out there, take chances, and you don't have to know everything, that people don't expect you to have all the answers right there on the spot. If you're ever presented with a situation or a question that you don't know, it's truly okay to say, I don't have the answer for that, but I'll research it and get back to you. People still respect you the same when you tell them that. And so I think early on, I felt like if someone asked me something, I had to have the answer right then, or they would think less of me if I didn't know that. So that would probably be another thing.
Yeah, it's funny how we can be so hard on ourselves and we assume that we're doing it with good intentions, but it doesn't actually benefit anybody.
Yeah. And I see that a lot with my new employees, scared to step outside that box and scared to meet with a client on their own because I don't know it all yet. I feel like I don't know everything. And that's like, I tell them, you need to put yourself out there because you'll be surprised at what you do know when you take those chances. You may psychologically build yourself up to think, I don't know it all, but you'll be surprised when you start talking, especially with a client that is way less educated than you are. Yeah. You actually know probably quite a bit.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So what are future plans for you?
Oh gosh. So, personally and professionally, I would say I see myself here. I've always lived here. This is where my family is. This is where my roots are. This is where our home office is. My daughter that's getting married in October, I see potentially, maybe, hopefully, in the not so distant future of grandbabies.
Yeah, there you go.
The exciting next step for me. I'll be 50 this year. So I'm like, okay, the next step. But I think probably here for me professionally, I see our agency growing as far as maybe expanding not only our territory employees, but we're trying to, one of the things we do with our employees is we don't want them to get complacent of just sitting in their desk and doing their same job over and over. We challenge all of our employees to be educators, to get involved in different things, find something you're passionate about, whether it be a volunteer aspect or whatever it may be level on different boards. And so that's one of the things I would like to expand upon in the future is our employees being more involved in different aspects of whether it be state level, county level, national level, and our agency too, as far as not just trying to stay right now that we have Burlington, Emporia, and Garnett, which are all within a probably 45-minute hour radius of each other. So I see we are licensed in multiple states, but the states that we're licensed in, we've only done that as an accommodation to current clients.
Yep.
It's not like hey, you know, we're going to get licensed and we're going to market there and we're going to prospect there. We aren't there yet, and that potentially could be something down the road that I see that we do.
Yeah.
But just growing our team, growing the agency is something that I'm kind of excited about potentially for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those sound like great plans.
Yeah.
So I have a surprise question for you. You ready?
Okay. I think so.
So if you got to play DJ for 5 minutes and you get to choose the song for the whole world, what song would you play?
That's a tough one. Maybe Living on a Prayer. I don't know.
I love this. Oh my gosh, this is
no. That's the first thing that came to my mind anyway.
Hey, I think that's totally legit. Go with your first answer.
It used to be early on, probably take this job and shove it. You know, that was my mind a million times. But where I am right now, I would say probably I'm living on a prayer.
Oh my gosh. I think that's fantastic. I love it. So I started asking that question, I don't know, a few interviews ago, I don't even know, but yeah, I just love getting these responses. I'm like, at some point I'm going to make a soundtrack out of all of these great songs that people are suggesting. So yeah. Well, I will make sure to jam out to that song when we get done with this interview. Yeah. But yeah, I am so appreciative of your time today, Janet. I know there's a lot of different things going on. And so I am so thankful that we could carve some time out today to chat and I could get to know you better. And now
it was great talking to you. And hopefully we get to actually see each other in person soon.
Yes. I know I'm ready to travel. I want to be sensitive, obviously, to everybody's reactions out there, but yeah.
In the not so distant future, hopefully in the near future, I want to travel more. So there you go.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I know. My immediate goals, go to a restaurant.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And
welcome.
We will catch up again soon. And sometime in the future, our paths will cross, and it will be so good to see you when that happens.
Absolutely. Well, you take care.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.